Kandinsky's Apex, produced by ssdiaz.art. In his book concerning the spiritual in art, Kandinsky describes the entire spiritual life of humanity as one large acute triangle, moving slowly and almost invisibly forward and upward through time. The base of this triangle is wide and heavy, filled with the great mass of people who live mostly in the material world, attached to what they can touch and name and own. As the triangle rises, it becomes narrower, and the higher segments contain fewer people with greater spiritual sensitivity. At the very top, the narrowest point, the apex, stands often just one man alone. This is the exceptional man, the true artist, the prophet, the visionary, who already sees and feels what the rest of the triangle will only understand many years later. His joyful vision is wrapped in vast sorrow, because even those closest to him do not understand what he is doing. They call him a charlatan or a madman. Kandinsky himself gives the example of Beethoven, who stood solitary and insulted during his own lifetime while creating music that the world was not yet ready to receive. Beethoven's late quartets and symphonies were dismissed by many of his contemporaries as the work of a deaf and deranged man. Yet today they are regarded as some of the highest achievements in human culture. What the man at the apex understands today sounds like incomprehensible gibberish to everyone below him. Only tomorrow does the second segment begin to grasp it, and only much later does the broad base finally catch up. This is why great artists and visionaries are always ahead of their time. They are pulled forward by inner necessity, by a spiritual force that will not let them wait for the crowd. The triangle moves with irresistible strength, but it moves slowly because the wide base is weighed down by materialism and by fear of anything new. The man at the apex cannot slow down for them. He must keep climbing even when he is alone, even when he is ridiculed, even when his work is rejected. Years or decades later, statues may be raised and his name may be honored, but by then the apex has already moved higher, and another solitary figure stands there pointing into the unknown. This image explains why truly original art is so often attacked at first, why abstract painting was called meaningless, why new forms are dismissed as empty or insane. The masses are not evil, they are simply lower in the triangle, still living in yesterday's language and yesterday's needs. The artist at the apex offers spiritual food that the segment just below him will one day reach for with eager hands. But today it feels too strange, too pure, too far ahead. We see this same pattern again and again in history. Nikola Tesla was another man who stood at the apex. His visions of wireless energy and alternating current were mocked and sabotaged during his lifetime. He died poor and largely forgotten while others profited from his inventions. Yet today he is recognized as one of the greatest minds in the history of electricity and technology. Friedrich Nietzsche was a philosopher who stood even further ahead. His aristocratic and anti-egalitarian ideas were so extreme that he was attacked as dangerous and insane while he was alive. He spent his final years in silence and obscurity, only for his writings to become enormously influential decades after his death, shaping entire movements in philosophy, art, and culture. Ignaz Semmelweis, the Hungarian physician who discovered that doctors should wash their hands to prevent childbed fever, was ridiculed and professionally destroyed by the medical establishment of his time. He was called a madman and eventually died in an asylum, yet his simple idea now saves millions of lives every year and is considered basic medical practice. Ezra Pound, the American poet and critic, stood at the apex in the literary world. His radical modernist ideas, combined with his extreme right-wing and aristocratic political views, led to him being imprisoned and widely condemned as a traitor and a madman after the Second World War. For decades his reputation was buried, yet today he is studied as one of the most important figures in 20th century poetry, and his influence on modern literature remains profound. These men, Beethoven, Tesla, Nietzsche, Semmelweis, and Pound, were all at different times the solitary figure at the top of Kandisky's triangle. They were misunderstood, insulted, attacked, or ignored because their vision reached further than the broad base of society could yet comprehend. Kandisky's triangle is not just a diagram of art history, it is a diagram of human spiritual evolution and the price paid by those who stand at the very front. The apex is lonely by nature because true vision always arrives first in one person before it can spread. This is the deep reason why so many great creators throughout history have lived misunderstood and often poor, only to be celebrated after their deaths, when the triangle has finally moved forward enough for the rest to see what they already saw. The man at the apex does not create for applause or for the present moment. He creates because inner necessity demands it, because the spiritual triangle must keep rising, and someone must stand at the point and look into what comes next. That is Kandisky's Apex, produced by ssdiaz.art.